Why aren't parents raising their kids anymore? Honestly, I remember back in the day, if you acted out, you would be punished for your fucking shitty behavior. Because growing up, if I acted out in public, I would be cooked when I got home. So I was always on my best behavior. Because if you had a mom like I did, she would give you the stare. You know the stare. The stare that tells you she brought you into this world and she is gonna take you out if she wants to. And for me, it'd tell me the chancla was in my near future, so I would never act out in public as a kid, especially not in a store or anything. But I would still be annoyed if my mom met up with a friend. She met in a random store, right? Because I knew we were about to be there forever. My mom nowadays, I guess she got debuffed because she's basically my little sister's bitch now. I mentioned before how my own little sister, she's an entitled princess overall because my mom chose to let technology do most of the heavy lifting in raising her, which is something I see a lot of parents following the same sort of mentality nowadays, which is obviously a very dangerous road that parents are letting their kids go down because if you don't raise your kids properly, you end up getting kids like this who do dumb shit and who don't give a shit about getting their lives together in the near future and will continue acting like brats when they grow up. A lot of kids also want to live their lives on social media, which is a whole fucking slew of problems coming your way, right? A lot of them want to be influencers instead of living in reality. But then again, morons like Rakai become famous, or I guess infamous in his case, because people decide to keep watching him, which is also a problem. Like, just don't give these kinds of people attention. Not the Rakais, not the Ice Poseidons. If you stop giving these idiots any attention, they literally disappear off the face of the earth. If parents let their kids live on the internet, they're going to get demolished because let's be honest, the internet is fucking brutal, especially if these kids who a lot tend to have unrestricted access to the internet will come across shit they really shouldn't be seeing sooner or later. They're gonna come across, those famous adult sites that we all know about. Because trust me, a kid who is curious enough will go through the trouble to find whatever he or she wants on the internet, especially with things like OnlyFans being promoted heavily nowadays. Because back in the day when I was a kid, you could say I fell in the same kind of, rabbit hole. In my case, you could very much describe it as curiosity killed the cat because I discovered the hub at a very young age. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I would just say it very much forced me to grow up at a very young age when I shouldn't have been seeing these kinds of things. Anyway, moving forward, obviously, I'm not saying that technology itself is evil, but parents need to be very careful in the way they restrict it and how they use it if they want to incorporate it into their child's upbringing, especially if they decide to use learning programs to help their kids learn more about, the world, countries, languages, or whatever. If they really want to help their kids learn more, they need to very much be careful in the way they decide to go about it. Speaking of parents, let's talk about another important thing that parents have failed in, and that's disciplining their kids. A lot of them don't want to discipline their kids, punish them for their bad behavior or reward them for good behavior, right? When they decide to do things like chores. Those kinds of things are important to teach kids because if you fail to do this, it's going to negatively impact them in the long run, as they'll grow up thinking they'll never be punished for their shitty behavior, which ain't the case. Reality isn't gonna pull any punches when the time comes, and these parents should not be surprised when their fucking kids who they failed to discipline at all end up becoming, really shitty adults. I'm obviously not telling parents to like beat the shit out of the kids. Or am I? No, but seriously, parents do need to start actually having punishments for misbehavior, or you're gonna get spoiled brats who will expect the world to be handed to them on a silver platter, and they'll end up hurting others intentionally or unintentionally because they're just so fucking stupid and don't understand the basics that you need to learn as an adult. Just because parents thought if they punished their kids at all, they would have traumatized them, instead of having them learn a lesson, there are consequences for your actions, right? I find it crazy how kids are acting out in both public and school settings when they don't get their way. It's almost like if you raise your kids on brain rot content, don't give them any good morals, and don't have any parental involvement at all in their lives, it leads to these kids struggling in their teens and adulthood to be normal members of society. Just look at all these teens right here who weren't raised properly by their parents. They're causing havoc in a place like McDonald's. Like, come the fuck on, I can't even order my Big Mac without some chaos unfolding behind me? If you look further into it, you can see how the rise in teens causing chaos and violence isn't rare anymore, which is a crazy thing to say because when I was growing up, I never really experienced this level of insanity. And that's not even mentioning whatever the fuck this is, because what the fuck is wrong with these parents? Come on. Going over to the school side of things, you see how often teen behavior tends to be mad disrespectful to teachers. Like, sure, I get class feels like a waste of time, but just pretend to care, right? That's what the majority of my friends and I would do when we were in a class that really bored us and we didn't really care about what we were being taught, your chemistry, because the majority of us didn't really fuck with chemistry. And we knew we weren't gonna be scientists. We just pretended to care, right? Just do that. Don't act out. Don't be like, disrespectful to the teacher. Just pretend to give enough of a shit until class is over. Instead of cussing your teacher out because this is something you don't want to do, like, bro, I'm pretty sure the majority of kids don't even want to be at school. And the principals slash the board of teachers aren't going to punish these kids because they need that sweet money investment slash funding from the parents or the governments by reaching quotas for graduating students. Because how else are they going to pay for the healthy lunches that nobody's going to eat? Thanks, Michelle Obama, by the way. I mean, even Carmelo Anthony graduated high school, and that dude killed another student. Like, it's crazy how kids go unpunished these days for their shitty behavior. And it's also just as insane that a lot of these, schools are passing these kids along into the next grade, even though they don't know how to do basic shit. I can understand a lot of the frustrations that these teachers who genuinely want to teach students feel, but this is kind of going into how the whole school system is a complete disaster, and I don't really want to open that can of worms here. I'll just say that it needs to be rebuilt from the ground up. I find it insane how a lot of teens don't even want to learn the basics, things everyone should know how to do, like math, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, all the foundations for anything with finances. Because these teens are going to struggle when they become adults and they don't know how to financially manage their bills and groceries every single month. Many teens are also using ChatGPT and other AI programs, your Grok and other shit like that, to do the thinking for them. Like, I'm pretty sure everybody should be able to think for themselves without needing to rely on AI program at all to do it for them. A really big thing that a lot of teens are struggling with is not being able to read or write. Like, look at this teacher breaking down. Bro made a whole ass video about how he was so disappointed in just how these kids are struggling to write down anything at all. That's crazy that these teens are struggling and they don't even want to actually learn because they're just always on their phone and shit, right? It's also a lot about the environment that they grew up in. Parents not properly telling them to pay attention in class and just letting them do whatever they want. It's important to have, guidance as a kid. And if you live in like a very shitty neighborhood or like near a ghetto, that's kind of what you're going to grow up to be like. It doesn't mean it's a guarantee, obviously, but it's very bad for, these kids who grow up and see their environment and it's all like, be a thug, be a criminal because everyone else is doing it, so I might as well, right? It's really bad for a lot of those kids who are growing up in those kinds of areas. And parents really need to just be there for their kids. Like, if we don't intervene at all, you're gonna have a really shitty future for a lot of these kids. Parents need to change their ways, and the government needs to fucking actually make a school system that is worth these kids' time so they'll actually want to learn things. It's a lot of problems that need to be fixed, and it doesn't look like we're really heading in a good direction. But these are just my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And that's all I gotta say. Bye.